Namaste, everyone. Namaste. So happy to see you here. So happy to be joining you, to be facilitating this evening Sunday Night Alive Spiritual Perspectives. Tonight is such an exciting topic. I'm hoping you are as thrilled about it as I am because it's all about you. Tonight is about you. And I've gathered up some wonderful insights from some beautiful spiritual teachers and some interesting perspective. You know, perspective means a particular attitude or way of regarding something. It's a point of view. So the idea, the impetus on my part behind spiritual perspectives is to bring a spiritual point of view and a spiritual way of looking at things to everything, because that is what's necessary actually to have love prevail. It's what's necessary to end violence. It's what's necessary to propel humanity into a bigger, broader, more loving expression of itself. And as I always say, it starts with us, right? The awakening of the awakening of humanity to its spiritual magnificence starts with us individually. That's the difference that we make. It is all in our wheelhouse, actually, to do that. So we're going to talk about you tonight, and I want you to know that I have moved to Naples, Florida, so I'm in my new home. I haven't quite got my background figured out yet, but that's okay. We're going to start here. I am all unpacked and quite happy to be here. I'm so close to many beautiful things, the botanical gardens, the Naples Zoo, and I'm in a wonderful neighborhood, and just very happy, satisfied, and fulfilled to actually be here. And now I'm here sharing that with you. Some of you are here with me in Naples. Some of you are in North Carolina. Some of you are on the West Coast. Some of you are in Arkansas. Some of you are in Chicago. So my ministry has taken me to many lovely places all over this country, and to Africa, of course. I streamed from Africa most of last year. So anyway, so let me begin. If you're here, please say hello. I know people are shy on the stream, but don't be shy. Say hello to me, and we create a little bit of a Sangha circle together. And that it's nice to know that others are here. Now, if you try to chat and you do not see your name, and I cannot see your name, it's because you're coming into this live feed from Denise Schubert on Facebook rather than a Life of Spiritual Power. So if you come in on Life of Spiritual Power, I will actually be able to see you. Suki, I see your note. I have sound. Doug, do you have sound? Can you hear me? I'm pretty sure people can hear me, Suki, so you might need to unmute yourself or me. So I'm going to pray us in before we begin. So join me today if you have not taken a moment to take a breath today. You know, breathing, we say that all the time, and breath allows us to turn our attention from the outer to the inner. It allows us to turn within to that place within us that is really the source of our peace, the source of our love, the source of our wisdom. And we need to remind ourselves, and we remind ourselves by taking a breath and turning within. And so as we do that together in this moment, we simply start at the beginning, which is to remember that there is more to us than what may be reflected back to us from the world. There is more to us than we may think there is. There is more to us because we are made in the image and likeness of the creative genius in back of everything. We are made in the image and likeness of God. Perfect, whole, complete. And that's true for all of us, not just some of us, not just a chosen few, but the entirety of the universe is a reflection of the divine. And so it is from that place of connection and community that I speak my word blessing our time together tonight, calling it good, knowing that when we come together in the name and the nature of unconditional love, that something has to happen good, and that uh, this good simply radiates out into the entire world, not just right where I am or right where you are. And so for the blessings of all of that, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. So I think we're fine here. I think some people are having troubles. I'm not quite sure. I'm on my end. Everything looks good. I'm not muted, so I'm going to go on. So we're talking, so in this perspective, so we're talking about you tonight, and we're talking about you because, again, it's the only thing that ultimately really matters, and the world's waiting for us to awaken. And it's very easy not to really know very much about who you are. And by the way, there are many versions of you. Your parents have a version of you in their thoughts. Your siblings have a version of you. The people you work with have a version of you. And more importantly, you have a version of you. So which one of these versions of you is the right version, the real version, the true version? Because everything from the ego's perspective is relative, not truth with a capital T. So you may not even be who you think you are. So I thought tonight we would focus on who you really are, and use that platform as a way of lifting and raising our consciousness into a more peaceful, more loving place. Now that our society, the culture we live in, does not value really the self, the individual, so much. If you've ever read Ralph Waldo Emerson's beautiful essay on self-reliance, that whole essay is really about how we capitulate our power to fit into the masses, that we are asked to take on the mantle of a persona that makes us palatable, not to one another, that kind of keeps us in line with what the norms are. Now, we all know that the conditioned self, that you are, and most of us start out being, was determined at the moment of our birth, because we were born into a certain culture, a certain religion, a certain economic status, a certain way of thinking, a certain worldview. And part of the raising up of a human being is to make sure that you know what all of those rules are according to wherever it is that you appeared, which is okay. There's really nothing too wrong with that, except that it's not the truth about who you are. Right? It's not the truth about who you are. There is a deeper truth to you. So I just want to make sure, are you all hearing me? Are you all hearing me? Okay, now, Les, I don't know about you, so but it seems that everything's working fine. So I wanted to share a little bit of the wisdom from. Well, let me go to the end game first, and then we'll back it up. So I have always said, I've been doing ministry for about almost going on 25 years now, and I myself have learned this through my own practice, that the fulfillment of your spiritual seeking, the end game, the practice and achievement for you personally, is self-love, self-respect, and self-esteem. And in the achieving of that, you will forgive and be forgiven, and you will walk in eternal peace. So the end game, so spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment, spiritual fulfillment is not possible without self-love and self-respect and forgiveness. And so as long as you're judging yourself, judging other people, as long as you are living in a conditioned world, the ultimate end game of your spiritual seeking will elude you. So so tonight really is about the self that you are as a lovable self, the self that you are as a forgivable self, the self that you really, really are, not the mistakes you've made, and not it's just not what you think. You are not who you think you are. I'm going to tell you a story. I quit smoking in 1995. Wow, almost 35 years ago. And smoking, like any other addiction, I discovered that I used smoking. I smoked a lot. And by the way, 1995. I was already 2 years into my spiritual path. So I was already in classes at Agape. I was already committed to being a minister. So I was not paying attention. But I did decide that at some moment that if I believed in life, that I would need to not smoke. So, but I was really surprised when I quit smoking and was not able to suppress my feelings or my emotions, when I was not able to have an outlet for dealing with what came up for me. I'm going to tell you what came up for me, and it was an amazing experience. And what came up for me was self-loathing. And that may sound harsh, but it wasn't harsh at all. It was accurate. I realized how hard I was on myself, how much I regretted and blamed, felt guilty, felt less than, felt like I'd done my whole frigging life that I had done it wrong. So self-loathing just arose, and I was so surprised. I was like, oh my God, what is this? So when I say to you that the end game is self-love, the end game is self-respect and self-esteem, I really do know that is the end game. Because if you don't love you, how can you love anyone else? If you don't forgive you, how can you possibly forgive anyone else? It is not possible. So we have to do this work of getting clear about who we are. Now, I'm not a person. I am not a minister or a spiritual teacher or a spiritual coach who wants to dig into the pathology of what we did wrong and why we did it that way. Because there may be some use for it, but ultimately I think that if you go to the truth, you just go to truth. You just go to what the truth is, and that you will find your way into the embodiment of it. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it's not interesting to figure out why you're the way you are as an ego identity. We kind of all know why we're the way we were, because we were raised, we were raised up by wolves. My parents were awesome, but they were not spiritually awakened, enlightened beings. They were kind of like all of us, like sleepwalking through life, not paying attention to what's important. They were clumsy, and they didn't know how to raise up a child. I was talking. I go to the Unity Naples Church, and our music team was there, and they have a 2-year-old. And this 2-year-old is the most remarkable little girl I've ever met. And she reminds me of why spiritual community is so important for parents and children. Because when you raise up a child and you realize that they might have come through you, but they don't belong to you, that your job is to usher them into their magnificence. These kids, they grow up being what we would call geniuses. But they're just normal. It's how it's supposed to be for all of us. That's how it was supposed to be. So I've garnered a little bit from Ernest Holmes, uh, Ernest Holmes this week, and Marianne Williamson, because they both have beautiful things to say about you, which I thought I would share with you. Ernest Holmes wrote a book called This Thing Called You. And he says, in some way which you know not of, through some process which never reveals its face, life has entered into you. Divine intelligence has willed it, so not you, nor any other person, nor all the wit, science, or philosophy of humankind, nor the inspiration of saints or sages can change one bit of it any more than man can arrest the eternal circuits of time, the revolutions of the planets, or the desire of the fledgling to leave the nest. So who you are really, the spiritual perspective of you as a unique and individualized expression of perfection cannot be explained, nor can it be changed. It is just the way that it is. Now, human beings don't know this, which is why we see them doing all the crazy things that we do, myself included. You and I do crazy things. Nonetheless, inside of you is wholeness, and inside of you is perfection. And we want to find that because we want to so remember that self-love, self-respect, self-esteem is your ticket into heaven on earth. It is your ticket into walking this earth in peace. He says, you belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion, the original flow of life. You are as much a part of it as the sun. You are much a part of it as the sun, the earth, and the air. There is something in you that knows this. Your soul belongs to the universe. Your mind is an outlet through which the creative intelligence of the universe seeks fulfillment. Now, I love Marianne Williamson's work in A Return to Love. If you've never, I have like a top 10 spiritual books list, and A Return to Love is definitely on this list. It is based on A Course in Miracles, but it is accessible. It's in English. It speaks to us in a language that we can understand. It's not lofty. It's good. It's really quite good. So add this to your list of things to read. She says in this book, in a chapter called You, there's also a chapter called Hell, there's a chapter called Heaven, there's a chapter called The Ego. But in this chapter called You, she says, you are a child of God. You were created in a blinding flash of creativity, a primal thought when God extended himself, herself, itself in love. Everything you've added on since is useless. And the added on sense is really what happens in our domestication as human beings in the world. And by the way, we'll talk in a minute, it takes us a long time to undo what has been done. But she goes on to say, and I love this part, she says, when Michelangelo was asked how he created a piece of sculpture, he answered that the statue already existed within the marble. God himself had already created the Pieta, David, and Moses. Michelangelo's job, as he saw it, was to get rid of the excess marble that surrounded God's perfect creation. She says, so it is with you. The perfect you isn't something you need to create because God already created it. It is it created the perfect you that is the love within you. Your job is to allow the Holy Spirit to remove the fearful thinking that surrounds your perfect self, just as excess marble surrounded Michelangelo's perfect statue. Now, this is hard to do, right? Because we have a long history of mistakes. We have a long history of what we didn't get perfectly. We have all the reasons why we can't be great, all the reasons why we can't be loved or lovable, all the reasons why we're afraid to be our true selves. But the truth is that we have to let it be. And it's really, I think it's what keeps people stuck for a long time in their spiritual growth. That because it takes, there's something that we have to break through, where we realize that we're not great because we say we're great. And by the way, self-love, self-esteem, and self-respect, there is some idea in the world that that's conceited, or some idea in the world that you can't think that highly of yourself, that there's some humility in self-deprecation, that there's some humility in playing small. And I want you to know that you are not great because you say you're great. You're great because the greatness of the universe that created every great thing. I mean, no, really, are there not great things in the universe? Sunsets, sunrises, babies, birds, flowers, oh my God, elephants, rainbows. Name some for yourself. The universe is so beautiful and so organized and so magnificent. I mean, the body itself, these bodies, the circulatory system, the digestive systems, the neurological systems, we are walking miracles. So you are great because God is great. And for you to think any otherwise is a little self-deprecating. It's not humble. It's a little arrogant to think that God created all that beauty except for you. That you're somehow you're like the porcupine, like somehow people think, wow, what was God thinking when God made a wildebeest or a gnu? Or, that is it a mistake? There are no mistakes. Now, I leaned into, sorry, I have to look up something here. One of my favorite songs is by someone most of you already know, which is Levi Christ. And he wrote this beautiful song called Let It Go. And the first paragraph of the song says, after all these years, what have I done? The mistakes I've made, and there's more than one. So even just stopping there, it's true, right? I mean, I remember hitting 45, which is around 1993 or 94, 95. And I remember thinking, oh my God, you have just royally screwed this up. You've done this and this and this. You've not cared for yourself. I remember thinking, there's so many things I've done wrong. How will I ever get out of this mess? And he says, I can't help wonder if I can let it be. What says, I wonder, can I let all those mistakes be? But listen, there is a beautiful principle that says, whatever you can let be can let you be. Whatever you can let be will let you be. So a spiritual perspective to bring to your pondering of your life and how you didn't get it perfect is to see if you can just apply another principle, which is what's so is also a little bit so what. I mean, so what if you were mean to your little sister, and in your view, it ruined her life. Or what so is also so what, that all of these things that we think we've done wrong. And that's not to say that there isn't this, there is kind of a karmic law of cause and effect in the universe, and that operates independent of us. We don't make it we don't cause it, and we don't not cause it. But remember, if you listen to the Unity message today, it's on the 4 agreements. And in the 4 agreements, the second agreement is don't take anything personally, because everybody's in their own world. Everybody's Everybody's got their own perspective. And remember, perspective is a way of looking at the world. It's a point of view. And you are not responsible for their perspective. You can't control their perspective. You can only do you. So conversely, we have the ability to turn our attention away from the mistake to the possibility, away from what we've done wrong to what we will do right. And when you do that, conversely, whatever you cannot let be will not let you be. So we have to let it be. There is nothing else to do. What else is there to do? You can't, you will not be able to move into the end game of your spiritual seeking, which is self-love, self-respect, self-esteem, self-regard, if you continue to hold yourself hostage to the mistakes that you've made. So Levi, in his lyrics, he says, I keep looking back on this wounded heart, my mind into my tears my mind apart, tears my mind in two and my soul apart. Sorry, I did that very badly. I keep looking back on this wounded heart, tears my mind in two and my soul apart. So that is true, right? When you look at who you've hurt, who's hurt you, what you did, what they did. I mean, there's kind of that going on around me right now, this unforgiveness, this looking for someone to blame, this just being torn apart. But listen, if you've been working with me for any length of time, I'm going to tell you the spiritual truth. Spiritual truth is nothing has happened to me. Everything that's happened has happened for me. That I am not a victim. That I am at cause in my universe. Now, if that's true for me, it's true for everyone. Everything conspires for the greater good of everyone. It's a perspective. And it's a perspective that leaves you powerful, not powerless. It's a perspective that leaves you happy, not morose. It's a perspective that allows you to be at peace in the world. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't work. It doesn't mean that we condone suffering. It just means that it's okay to be happy. It's okay to forgive yourself. Because Levi says, after all that, I keep looking back on this wounded heart, tears my mind in two and my soul apart. It's over now. It's time to move on. Let it go. Let it all go. It's time to forgive now the one who matters most. It's time to forgive now the one who matters most. Who's the one who matters most in this conversation? Did anybody get the question right? Who's the one who matters most? Yes, it's you. You matter most. Why? Because in truth, there's only one of us here. If you forgive, other people will forgive. If you love, other people will love. And listen, we can't control. The ego is sneaky and pervasive. I was listening where I was today, people justifying their hatred and their anger and their upset. But yes, you do matter most. But the ego, when behavior is justified, when we're looking for someone to blame, that's all ego. There is no God in there. So don't be fooled when somebody's making a big case, a really strong case for being hateful and fighting and sticking up for people. It's like, love, breathe. Yes. Have we made mistakes? Yes. Will we make more mistakes? My guess is we might. That as long as the ego's more powerful than the spirit in you, we will get things wrong, because the ego's job is to keep you right, other people wrong, to keep you afraid rather than faithful, to keep you fearful rather than trusting. So if any of those things are going on for you, there's more spiritual work to do. There's more meditation, there's more letting go, there's more letting be, but that is the path. The journey for you, the fulfillment of your spiritual seeking, practice, and achievement is self-love, self-respect, and self-esteem. In that you will forgive, and you will be forgiving, and walk in eternal peace. So Marianne Williamson, I'm going to read you just a little bit more of what she said. She said, "We are not who we think we are. You are not your grades, your credentials, or your resumes, or your house. You aren't any of these things. We are holy beings, individual cells in the body of Christ." One of the other perspectives, spiritual perspectives on who you are, is you are a being, not a doing. So I am guilty myself of thinking that my value comes in what I do, and that's false. Your value comes, and my value comes in who we're being. So there's a very, very big shift in consciousness when you can wrap your arms around that you don't have to prove yourself by doing more or doing better. You don't. You want to be. She says, "A Course in Miracles reminds us that the sun continues to shine and the ocean continues to swell, oblivious to the fact that a fraction of their identity has forgotten what it is." And she's talking about us, that we, and what Ernest Holmes said, we are part of the universe that we live in. We have an equal right to be here, to the sun, to the stars, to the moon. So take a breath. Do take a breath. She says, "We are all one. We are love itself. Accepting the Christ is merely a shift in perception. We awaken from the dream that we are finite beings, isolated creatures, and recognize that we are glorious, infinitely creative spirits. We awaken from the dream that we are weak and accept that the power of the universe is within us." So it's truly all perspective. And I know that for many of us that were in conflict, last week I talked about conflict, a spiritual perspective on conflict. And the truth is, the conflict lives in us. The truth is, our inability to not forgive others lives in us. The truth is, our inability to feel loved or be loved lives in us. So, Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of Science of Mind, said, "Change your thinking, change your life, change your," I'm using the word perspective here, but it's exactly the same. Just change the way you see things, and the way you see things will change. Change, I say the world will be to you what you are to the world. So doesn't it feel kind of light and airy and peaceful and wonderful to give up trying to change the world, trying to make the world be different, trying to fit into a dysfunctional system? Listen, the world isn't functioning properly. Duh. Surprise. There's way too much ego out there for my liking. People, I mean, it's so not the natural order of things, all of this hatred and fear and fighting. And we don't have to do it. You can choose not to do it. I want to actually kind of close tonight with a poem by the Sufi poet Hafez, which says, "The way you can get." And he says, so listen, you might even just close your eyes and breathe while I read this. The words are so beautiful. And if you're not familiar with him, His name is Hafiz, and I'm going to write it down here for you. Hafiz is a Sufi poet. And he says, I know the way you can get when you have not had a drink of love. Your face hardens, your sweet muscles cramp. Children become concerned about a strange look that appears in your eyes, which even begins to worry your own mirror. Squirrels and birds sense your sadness and call an important conference in a tall tree, trying to figure out a secret code to chant to help your mind and your soul. Even angels fear that brand of madness that arrays itself against the world and throws sharp stones and appears and spears into the innocent and into oneself. And he's saying here that when you've not had enough love, when you're not coming from love, you become mean to the world. You become angry. You begin looking for things to blame, looking for things to tear apart. He says, oh, I know the way you can get if you have not been drinking love. You might rip apart every sentence your friends and teachers say, looking for hidden clauses. You might weigh every word on a scale like a dead fish. You might pull out a ruler to measure from every angle in your darkness the beautiful dimensions of a heart you once trusted. I know the way you can get if you have not had a drink from love's hands. That is why all the great ones speak of the vital need to keep remembering God. So tonight, as we close our conversation, our spiritual perspective on you, I want you to leave tonight knowing, if only for a minute, how wonderful you are and how beautiful you are and how lovable you are and how none of your mistakes define you. It doesn't matter how much of a mess you've made from the moment of your birth till today, no matter how old you are, whether you're 75, 85, 45, 35, it matters not. That you are whole and perfect now, viewed that way by the one who made you. I mean, if God saw our mistakes and punished us, then that God would not be a loving God at all. That, we've created God in our image and likeness, so we've decided that God's vengeful and judgy and not merciful. That's how we are. I mean, we don't show mercy. We don't forgive. We don't love. But the truth is that God is, what we can know about God is that God is eternally in love with us. That she created us in perfection. We are still in that perfection. And that, like the prodigal son, the beautiful story about the prodigal son leaving home, but then going back and being welcomed with open arms, that's our story. And so just be happy. You are okay, just the way that you are. And that your only job you have is to be loving, to be peaceful, to be joyful, to be tolerant, to be patient. First and foremost with you. This is all about you. And then ultimately to be that when you do that, you will find that forgiving people becomes very, very easy. Loving people becomes very, very easy. Looking past their mistakes, which, by the way, does not mean you do not hold people accountable. It does not mean that. It doesn't mean people get to walk all over you. It doesn't mean that we don't provide correction to people who kill people or bomb buildings. I mean, of course we do that, but we do it from a spiritual perspective rather than an ego perspective. And those people, when they find self-love inside of them, they'll stop doing that. When you find love inside of you, you'll stop doing the things that you feel bad about, because finding the divine within restores your integrity with yourself. And you know what I'm talking about. It's like when you go on a diet and you eat a piece of chocolate cake, you get out of integrity with yourself a little bit. And I love the analogy, I think in the Landmark Forum, where they talked about how if you have a bucket of white paint and you drop red paint with an eyedropper into the bucket, you won't be able to notice it at first. It doesn't look like the white paint's any less white. But to the degree that we're not loving, to the degree that we are going against our real nature, capital R, our true nature, capital T, we keep dropping drops of red paint into our perfection. And if you do it long enough, pretty soon we are out of sorts with ourselves. So our job is to do our very best to stay on the right track, to do the right thing, which means the loving thing, to not try to fit into the world of the ego, because it's not good for you and it's not good for the world. So, all right. So who's the one who matters most? You are the one who matters most. I love you to death, all of you. So before I pray, let's see if there's anything else. I don't know what we're doing next week, but we will do something. Again, if you have any ideas, if you have anything you would like a spiritual perspective discussed or dove into, please just let me know. I'll be happy to do that. If you want to support my ministry, you can do that with a love offering, which I love. I'm very happy to accept them, which is, you can just go to my website, deniseschuber.com, to donations, or PayPal, Zelle, or Venmo work as well. And if you're interested in spiritual coaching, if you need some, here's the thing. If sometimes we need someone to hear us and to talk to you about that is coming from a spiritual perspective, which means coming from knowing your inherent wholeness. And sometimes we get stuck, and sometimes we've done things or had things done to us that are hard to get beyond. If that's true for you and you don't have a spiritual community that you can go to, then maybe spending some time together would be good. And I just want you to know this is a large part of what I do in life, and I am more than happy to work with you. You just need to let me know. And I think that's it. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, for being interested in growing along spiritual lines. And I look forward to being with you next Sunday. So let's end in prayer. I'm going to speak a word of truth about your godliness, about your divinity, about your forgivability, about your lovability. So join with me by taking a breath to end our time together. And as you exhale that breath, do let it all go. See if there's something, as I pray, that you can just let be. And it can be an ancient conflict. It could be something that happened today. It could be something you're holding somebody hostage in your mind. It could be something you haven't forgiven yourself for. Whatever, see if you can let something be. Because remember, if you let it be, it will let you be. And so we turn within together to that place and space and dimension within us that is whole, perfect, and complete. Nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing wrong, nothing to fix. We're wanting in our prayer work and in our spiritual work to discover that within ourselves, to, like the statue, to take away everything that's not us. So truly, we're not fixing anything. We're letting go of all the dirt and grit of this journey. And so as I turn within, I come face to face with the God within me. As you turn within, that God within you is the same God. God cannot break itself into pieces, and there's no spot where God is not. So we are connected through a golden thread of divinity, through a golden thread of unconditional love, through a golden thread of a peace that surpasses all human understanding. And I know that this connection is real. I know that it is the only meaningful thing in life, is to feel it, to express it, to know it. And I know that as in as much as there is this divine intelligence and wisdom, that there are spiritual principles and laws which are responsive to the words spoken, to the emotions felt, to our attitudes and our beliefs. And so when I speak my word, I am speaking it into a law that I know exists. It is the master chef of the kitchen of life, and that it will go about the business of clothing the words that I'm speaking with flesh. And so I'm speaking my word for and about you, to simply affirm your holiness, to affirm your perfection, to affirm your connection to God, and to know that as you know that you know that you know, the conflicts within your own soul dissipate, the conflicts with other people disappear, that you are flooded with spiritual light, that you are lifted out of the turmoil of life into the peace of God, and that there is nothing too big for God to handle. There's no problem too complex, that and there is no time in God. So it doesn't take a lot of time to work things out. Let it be. Let something just be, and it will let you be. And so I'm grateful in advance for the aha moments in your life, for the continued inspiration and guidance you receive from the indwelling presence of God. I'm grateful for the ease and grace with which you grow and evolve. I am. And I just know that as we do this, the world will become itself. The world will fall into alignment with spiritual perspectives. And so for all the blessings we have given each other tonight and received, I'm grateful. I just released my word, accepting the yes of the universe to go about the business of making it real and true and visible. I invite you to do the same thing, to release any doubt, to walk forward from this time in faith. And so it is. Amen. Well, I don't know about you, but I really needed this tonight. So I'm going to go about my business this evening in peace. I invite you to go about your this evening with increased peace as well. I look forward to seeing you next Sunday. If you need anything, just give me a shout out. I love you. Be well.